leave your country and your relatives and your father's house, and go to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great. You will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who treats you with contempt. All the families of the earth will be blessed through you."
So Abram went as the Lord had told him. Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Abram took Sarai his wife, Lot his brother's son, all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people whom they had acquired in Haran, and they went to go into the land of Canaan. Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem to the oak of Moreh. At that time Canaanites were in the land.
I will give this land to your offspring.
He built an altar there to the Lord, who had appeared to him. He left from there to go to the mountain on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the Lord's name. Abram traveled, still going on towards the south. There was a famine in the land. Abram went down into Egypt to live as a foreigner there, for the famine was severe in the land. Abram had sheep, cattle, male donkeys, male servants, female donkeys, and camels. Abram went up out of Egypt, he, his wife, all that he had, and Lot with him, into the south. Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver and in gold. The land was not able to bear them, that they might live together, for their possessions were so great that they couldn't live together.
Please let there be no strife between you and me, and between your herdsmen and my herdsmen, for we are relatives. Isn't the whole land before you? Please separate yourself from me. If you go to the left hand, then I will go to the right, or if you go to the right hand, then I will go to the left.
So Lot chose the plain of the Jordan for himself. Lot traveled east, and they separated themselves from one another. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, and Lot lived in the cities of the plain, and moved his tent as far as Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were exceedingly wicked and sinners against the Lord.
Now lift up your eyes, and look from the place where you are northward and southward and eastward and westward, for I will give all the land which you see to you and to your offspring forever. I will make your offspring as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can count the dust of the earth, then your offspring may also be counted. Arise, walk through the land in its length and in its width, for I will give it to you."
Abram moved his tent and came and lived by the oaks of Mamre, which are in Hebron, and built an altar there to the Lord. There was a war between nations, and year-long conflicts raged. They took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their food and went their way. They took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who lived in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. One who had escaped came and told Abram, the Hebrew. At that time he lived by the oaks of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner. They were allies of Abram. When Abram heard that his relative was taken captive, he led out his 318 trained men, born in his house, and pursued as far as Dan. He divided himself against them by night, he and his servants, and struck them, and pursued them to Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. He brought back all the goods, and also brought back his relative Lot and his goods, and the women also, and the other people. The king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer, and the kings who were with him at the valley of Shaph. Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High. He blessed him and said,
"Blessed be Abram of God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth. Blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand."
Abram gave him a tenth of all.
"Give me the people, and take the goods for yourself."
After these things the Lord's word came to Abram in a vision, saying,
"Don't be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your exceedingly great reward."
Lord God, what will you give me, since I go childless, and he who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus? Behold, you have given no children to me, and behold, one born in my house is my heir.
Behold, the Lord's word came to him, saying,
"This man will not be your heir, but he who will come out of your own body will be your heir. Look now towards the sky, and count the stars, if you are able to count them. So your offspring will be."
He believed in the Lord, who credited it to him for righteousness. He brought him all these and divided them in the middle, and laid each half opposite the other. But he didn't divide the birds. The birds of prey came down on the carcasses, and Abram drove them away. When the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell on Abram. Now terror and great darkness fell on him.
Know for sure that your offspring will live as foreigners in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them. They will afflict them 400 years. I will also judge that nation whom they will serve. Afterward they will come out with great wealth, but you will go to your fathers in peace. You will be buried at a good old age, and the 4th generation they will come here again, for the iniquity of the Amorite is not yet full.
It came to pass that, when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a flaming torch passed between these pieces. In that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying,
I have given this land to your offspring, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites.
Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bore him no children. She had a servant, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. Sarai said to Abram,
I see now, the Lord has restrained me from bearing. Please go in to my servant. It may be that I will obtain children by her.
Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her servant, after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to Abram her husband to be his wife. He went into Hagar, and she conceived. When she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. Sarai said to Abram,
This wrong is your fault. I gave my servant into your bosom, and when she saw that she had conceived, she despised me. May the Lord judge between me and you.
Behold, your maid is in your hand. Do to her whatever is good in your eyes.
Sarai dealt harshly with her, and she fled from her face. The Lord's angel found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain on the way to Shur.
Hagar, Sarai's servant, where did you come from? Where are you going?
I am fleeing from the face of my mistress Sarai.
Return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hands. I will greatly multiply your offspring, that they will not be counted for multitude. Behold, you are with child, and will bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has heard your affliction. He will be like a wild donkey amongst men. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. He will live opposed to all of his brothers.
You are a God who sees.
Hagar bore a son for Abram. Abram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him,
I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless. I will make my covenant between me and you, and will multiply you exceedingly.
Abram fell on his face. God talked with him, saying,
As for me, behold, my covenant is with you. You will be the father of a multitude of nations. Your name will no more be called Abram, but your name will be Abraham. For I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you. Kings will come out of you. I will establish my covenant between me and you and your offspring after you throughout their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be a God to you and to your offspring after you. I will give to you and to your offspring after you the land where you're traveling, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession. I will be their God. As for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your offspring after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant, which you shall keep between me and you and your offspring after you. Every male amongst you shall be circumcised. You shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin. It will be a token of the covenant between me and you. He who is 8 days old shall be circumcised amongst you. every male throughout your generations. As for Sarai your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but her name shall be Sarah. I will bless her, and moreover, I will give you a son by her. Yes, I will bless her, and she will be a mother of nations. Kings of peoples will come from her.
Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart,
Will a child be born to him who is 100 years old, oh, that Ishmael might live before you?
No, but Sarah, your wife, will bear you a son. You shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant for his offspring after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. He will become the father of 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But I will establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you at this set time next year.
Abraham took Ishmael his son, all who were born in his house, and all who were bought with his mummy, every male amongst the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the same day. The Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre, as he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and saw that 3 men stood near him. When he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and bowed himself to the earth, and said,
My lord, if now I have found favor in your sight, please don't go away from your servant. Now let a little water be fetched, wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. I will get a piece of bread so you can refresh your heart. After that you may go your way, now that you have come to your servant.
Very well, do as you have said.
Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah and said,
Quickly prepare 3 seahs of fine meal, knead it and make cakes.
Abraham ran to the herd and fetched a tender and good calf and gave it to the servant. He took butter, milk, and the calf which he had dressed and set it before them. He stood by them under the tree, and they ate.
Where is Sarah, your wife?
There, in the tent.
I will certainly return to you at about this time next year. And behold, Sarah, your wife, will have a son.
Sarah heard in the tent door which was behind him. The Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had spoken. Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham called his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore to him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him.
God has made me laugh. Everyone who hears will laugh with me. Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? For I have borne him a son in his old age.
The child grew and was weaned. Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, mocking.
Cast out this servant and her son, for the son of this servant will not be heir with my son Isaac.
The thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight on account of his son.
Don't let it be grievous in your sight because of the boy and because of your servant. In all that Sarah says to you, listen to her voice, for your offspring will be named through Isaac. I will also make a nation of the son of the servant, because he is your child.
Abraham rose up early in the morning and took bread and a container of water, and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, and gave her the child, and sent her away. She departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. The water in the container was spent, and she put the child under one of the shrubs. She went and sat down opposite him, a good way off, about a bowshot away.
Don't let me see the death of the child.
She sat opposite him, and lifted up her voice, and wept. God heard the voice of the boy. The angel of God called to Hagar out of the sky, and said to her,
What troubles you, Hagar? Don't be afraid, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Get up, lift up the boy, and hold him with your hand, for I will make him a great nation.
God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. She went, filled the container with water, and gave the boy a drink. God was with the boy, and he grew. He lived in the wilderness, and as he grew up, he became an archer. After these things, God tested Abraham and said to him,
Abraham,
Here I am.
now take your son, your only son, Isaac, who you love, and go into the land of Moriah. Offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I will tell you of.
Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son. He split the wood for the burnt offering and rose up and went to the place of which God had told him. On the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place far off. Abraham said to his young men,
Stay here with the donkey. The boy and I will go over there. We will worship and come back to you.
Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son. He took in his hand the fire and the knife. They both went together. Isaac spoke to Abraham his father.
My father.
Here I am, my son.
Here is the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering?
God will provide himself the lamb for a burnt offering. My son.
They came to the place which God had told him of. Abraham built the altar there and laid the wood in order, bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar, on the wood. Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to kill his son.
Abraham, Abraham,
Here I am.
don't lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me.
Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and saw that behind him was a ram caught in the thicket by his horns. Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering instead of his son. Abraham called the name of that place, The Lord Will Provide. As it is said to this day, on the Lord's mountain, it will be provided. The Lord's angel called to Abraham a second time out of the sky and said,
I have sworn by myself, says the Lord, because you have done this thing and have not withheld your son, your only son, that I will bless you greatly, and I will multiply your offspring greatly like the stars of the heavens and like the sand which is on the seashore. Your offspring will possess the gate of his enemies. All the nations of the earth will be blessed by your offspring, because you have obeyed my voice.
So Abraham returned to his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba. Abraham lived at Beersheba,